Yes, and correct. What they don't realize is, at least that 9 to 5, after that 5, you don't have to think about work at all. Mm-hmm. And when you own your business, then you have to think about it all the time.
That's right.
There is no off, there is no vacation,
yep.
There is no comp. I mean, you go a week on vacation, not only did it cost you that vacation, you lost everything that week that you would have made.
Welcome back.
Morning.
To Expandable. So, we talked about this maybe sprinkled through some of our older conversations, but I wanted to bring it back up because I think there's probably a lot of people who are in the mode of buying businesses. They have what they call the silver tsunami that's happening with all the boomers retiring.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
They got to put a name on everything. And so there's a lot of businesses out there for sale. My hunch is a lot of those businesses probably won't get bought because they don't have proper books or, they can't present their business. It's not even valuable. It's based on the owner. There's lots of stuff that will, but there are a lot of good businesses out there that do have it all together and they're poised for purchase. So I thought we could talk about when would it make sense for someone to buy a business versus building a business. So let's take someone who's got, I don't know, $100,000 in savings that they're ready to deploy against a small business of their own cash.
Okay.
And then they could apply for an SBA loan, and maybe do some seller financing. So I don't really want to talk about the structure of how they would buy it as much in this episode, as much as, why would it make sense for me to buy a business versus starting a business?
So, there's so many variables, but of course, in buying a business, you hopefully have track record and you have history.
Yeah.
So then okay, here's expectations, here's what the sales are now. Mm-hmm. So that's the benefit of buying a business or starting. Now, what comes along with that, comes with the price.
Yeah.
How consistent is it going to be once you buy it? And then, what are you buying? Was there, physical assets that you had to get in the business? What were the barriers of entry? Things like that. So, there's a lot of businesses out there and, that, you had to be in the business for years, like a startup. You're going to startup consultant. There's typically, but then a consultant's not, the business is not necessarily going to have that much value because they're the value.
Yeah. You'd have to have a product or something.
Yeah. So it really depends there's so many variables of what goes into play, whether you buy or start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a good rule of thumb is to play in your own domain. Like, don't try to get into a business that you don't know anything about, because there's a lot of mistakes you're going to make. For example, and it depends on your age.
Yeah.
It depends on your season of life and your risk tolerance. And there's a lot of things, but by and large, someone who's like, hey, I'm sick of sitting at a desk 9 to 5 in the corporate world, and I want to go start a pizza truck. Like, okay, well,
correct.
That could work.
Well,
but
yes, and correct. What they don't realize is, at least that 9 to 5, after that 5, you don't have to think about work at all. Mm-hmm. And when you own your business, then you have to think about it all the time.
That's right.
There is no off, there is no vacation,
yep.
There is no comp. You go a week on vacation, not only did it cost you that vacation, you lost everything that week that you would have made. So
it cost you double or more or triple.
Correct. Even a retail customer in town that has a retail location that sells products, and I think someone was like, "Oh, come on a family cruise. We're going to these. I'll cover it." And he was like, "Okay, great for the cruise.
It's going to
but
cost
I lose $10,000 this week not being
and the ripple
here.
Effect of having your door shut, and then people get confused, and now it trips that cycle of habitual, and now you could lose some people forever.
Yeah.
I
know I do think things are changing where it was, people lumped up, I hate the corporate world, but then they lump every business into the corporate world and relationship. But there's so much that has to go into just, running a business that can sustain over 10 employees is a feat in itself.
Oh, yeah.
Let alone 50, 100, and 200. Yeah. So I do think a lot of times people take that granted, what was done prior to allow you. Or people come out of school, too, and they think, oh, I should be earning this. No, actually, the employer's losing their ass on you since you're out of school for I don't know how long until you start producing, because they're teaching you. You learn nothing prior. Now I got to teach you.
Yeah, that's a great point, because I think if you started to build a business, you want to start one from scratch, you got to really love what you're doing, because if you don't, or you're not close to it. And
you mentioned SBA loan, but don't borrow money right off the bat, start a business. I mean, I wouldn't go to a bank and I 101. Are you kidding me?
I was just saying these are your financial levers, your typical.
Correct.
And you more likely to borrow if you're buying a business, because it's based on
you've got
financials.
the history. You've got
starting a business is not a good idea to borrow money.
No, you need to spend your own money.
Yeah. But starting a business, you have to be ready to just suckle in for like 6 years or 7 years and say, okay, I'm basically going to not take a salary. I mean, if you want it to build it to a point where, it becomes fruitful and it's rewarding and freedom and all the stuff that you would start a business for, you've got to really just bite the bullet for a longer period of time than you would think. You think, a couple of years and then it will be good. Like there's so many things to build in a business. It's like raising a child. And trying to get them to eat, to walk, to poop, to like speak a language. You've got to learn all these things so you can teach it. So I'd say, passion is a big thing, because if you're not close to the work and the desire is not there, you're going to lose pretty quickly on the front end. And so getting into a business arena that you're passionate about is going to help you when it gets real hard. But building a business is, like you were mentioning, there's so many things that have to be done on the front end. And financially, it doesn't pay out typically until many years in, no matter if you're close to that or not. Because you got to put the money back in the business for it to grow and have sustain it and have life.
Yeah. And if your goal is to expand outside of just, you're one person that you want to grow and hire people, then you're going to have to start producing procedures, follow-ups, and your time is going to get spread thin to when maybe you were the only one building that product or doing that service. Now you're having to check up on everyone else. And
there's a case in there for buying a business. Now, buying a business is its own sort of lesson in itself, because there are potholes you can step in while you are buying the business. Right now is a short period of time that you go into the market, you find a business, you buy it, now you own it. That's a short period of time, respectively, to building. But you can make a lot of mistakes in the buying of the business that play out over time, which are negative. So I think that there's potentially harmful things that can happen on both sides, but there's a lot of if you buy a business, you're skipping if you buy a successful business, you're skipping the first 5 to 10 years of building.
A lot of times, yeah. And the beginning stuff that you only have to do one time, then it's recurring. Oh, you got to, what type of company do I want to be?
I don't want to file taxes or,
pass through. Right. How do you want to continue on? So you've got that building, and okay, the first 2 years, we're going to do it this way. Now we need to expand from, a sole prop on, you can skip that beginning stuff. And in essence, I did too, because, my career, I started it already an existing company. So I didn't have that startup mentality. Now I've started up products and services within the company, but I didn't have to have the formation of the company itself. And that was a huge, I don't ever want to take that for granted that was already started.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's for different strokes for different folks. Like you should know down inside if you're the type of person who's going to have the stomach to start building, the building blocks. And I'm not talking about starting like a handyman business where it's you getting calls and you're going around and fixing things. I'm talking about a business that's going to have employees. You're going to sell products or deliver services that there's more complexity to it.
Well, then everything's trust too. People, I in this day and age, you've got to build up trust. You've got to sell your product, and
that takes time.
How did the product work? I mean, did the product last? How was the ongoing support of that? That shows up in year 2, 3, 4. You see that, and communities talk. one thing that I always think of, there's proliferation of like garage gyms equipment. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
I see that, you know, kind of subculture
Uh-huh.
and that. And so very quickly you'll see companies that have a good product, but within community of just that, real quickly, if customer support stinks in an area, that YouTuber is going to say, hey, yeah, I've got bad customer support over here. It was a good product, but they didn't follow up with this and they didn't get this bushing and I'm done with it. Word gets out because the groups talk to each other. They really do.
That's where everything's happening.
Year two, you know, because how many times people, I've got a good product, and then year 2 or 3, they just can't fulfill it. They can't do this.
Yeah.
And I see it within that community of products. So you got people come out, okay, they were good at fabrication, you know, maybe they're a good welder, and then from then on, and they either took too much orders, couldn't produce, and you know, and it just wiped away real quick.
Yeah.
It was the other stuff they couldn't do.
Right.
They didn't realize it. Hey,
Yeah,
I'm good at welding. I should have had somebody else do this.
Yeah.
You know, I'm you know.
Yeah. It's funny when you said that, like people will, with social media, forums, you have Slack groups on the more professional group type thing that talk and learn and communicate and share resources. You have Reddit and you have all these places that exist. And then there's group text. I mean, just you with your friends or family that you're sharing what's happening in your day and staying in touch. That's where a lot of the, hey, I'm trying to buy this thing. Do you know anybody kind of thing? And it happens on.
And it takes time.
Yeah. And so in order to have your name or your company name in those conversations and it be a positive thing, takes time for one. But it takes a lot of work. There's a lot of marketing and sales that have to go into putting forth your company in a way that's going to be perceived well, received well, and then cycled through to retention. You know, no matter really what you're selling.
It's a consistency and follow through,
yeah.
You know, over the years. And then people, you know, will keep coming back. So luckily you find a business that you're buying like that, then you can leverage it.
Yeah. I think where we stand right now with the quote unquote silver tsunami, anyone who is thinking about getting into business for themselves, I think they should take a really good hard look at buying a business. They should go, you know, read a couple books, look at resources about what it takes to run a small business. They need to watch a bunch of YouTube videos, like get kind of well read about what it takes to run a small business or buy a small business, because there are so many that are coming online now that are available, and those deals are only going to get better because those people trying to sell it are going to have less and less options. And maybe one of the first steps is get in touch with a broker that has access to a lot of these deals, and just, if there's a fee involved or not, just start, you know, having those conversations and start learning.
You know, I've been hearing over the years, okay, baby, retire all the business. Now I haven't been looking in recently. Have you been looking in and seeing the growth of businesses for sale, retirees?
I haven't really paid too close of attention. You're talking about post sale?
No, just businesses for sale.
The numbers,
the baby boomers retiring.
I haven't. I don't have any metrics or resources I could point to offhand. But my hunch is that it's growing, because I'm looking at the types of businesses out there that are owned by boomers and seeing both from service based up to your manufacturing. I mean, these are companies that have been in business for decades that still make this one thing that's bought by the government, right? Or something like that. And that's not going to go away. And they need to give it to somebody. Their, you know, son or daughter is not going to succeed them. And it needs to go to someone else. I think a lot of this, I think there's a huge opportunity. This is sort of a side note, but a huge opportunity for roll-ups for other companies. So like, you know, you have, let's say, a $10 million company that's in that domain, and they want to add a service, or they want to expand in some way. They'll go and buy a smaller $1 to $3 million company and roll it up inside of what they're doing and put it under their brand.
Just
and
get better efficiencies.
Because they know the business well enough, and they know that those contracts are going to, you know, survive X period of time, and they're just essentially buying that book of business and putting it in with theirs. I think there's a ton of those deals happening.
All right.
from my vantage point. But I think to summarize, it's I would give a good hard look at buying versus building, because if you want to build, there's probably already a business out there that's doing what you want to do that you could buy and reform it into what your vision, brand wise or product wise or whatever, instead of starting from scratch.
Negotiate with the seller, and unfortunately, they may have way more hours and they may be selling it where they made below minimum wage, but they also were making money along the way too. They got to take consideration because it depending on how much continual work they were doing. They set up, but then when you're selling a business and you were doing 80-90% of the work, the business is not necessarily as valuable as
that's right. And you might find, that's why I would say
you could have been making a ton of money, but
you might find that this business is maybe worth 1.5 what they're saying. But if you were to go start it, you're going to save, maybe it takes you 18 months to get it up and running, or 24 months to get it up and running, versus buying it, in 30 days. But that time you're going to have saved so much more money, and you can start it from scratch and it'd be completely yours, and you didn't spend all that money buying it. You might find that case.
Absolutely.
So you might find that that's a better deal. I just think that, people can get their tunnel vision on, well, I need to do this thing. And if you're passionate about it, then go for it. But I think building is a second thought in my mind versus buying at this point in time.
Yeah.
Unless you got some crazy unique thing, then yes, of course. But there's probably a business out there that already does it, and you could buy them and make it your own. And you already have a bookkeeper on staff. You already have all these people on staff that are vetted. So that's my summary thought on all that.
All right.
All right.
On the next
one.